All three of the lessons for this morning are linked together. What's the theme? Yes, you didn't know you would have to pay attention to the readings, did you? Isaiah 6 is the Old Testament lesson, isn't it? And in it, we hear about Isaiah's call to be a prophet. Don't you? If you didn't listen, you do hear about that in Isaiah 6. In Paul's letter to the Corinthians this morning, he is talking about himself passing on the first and most important things that have been given to him, because he had Jesus appear to him, last of all the apostles, as like one untimely born. Isn't it Paul's story of call? It is a short version of Paul's story of call, in case you were wondering. There's a longer version in Acts where he's knocked blind and all kinds of other fun things, but that's a different Sunday's readings. What about the gospel story? What does Simon, who secretly called Peter most of the time, and James and John get? They get the call. They too are called. In all three stories, we get this call, this question of vocation. Now, vocation is kind of a fancy word, isn't it? It's not really the kind of word you use all the time, but it's kind of a church way of saying the thing that God is calling you to do and to be. Everyone's Christian vocation is the same. Now, the way you get there will be a little bit different. Some of you are going to be lawyers or teachers or nurses or doctors or accountants or musicians or whatever else it is you do. But the vocation, the call, is the same. Jesus sums it up like this. You are to love the Lord your God with all your mind, all your soul, all your strength, all that makes you, you. And the second half of that vocation is this: to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, really, it's one half. It's all one thing. If you love the Lord your God with all your mind, all your soul, all your strength, all that makes you, you, then you can't but help love your neighbor, because that's what God does. But we can make it even more simple than that. The Christian vocation is this: to become a saint and to drag as many people to heaven with you as you possibly can. So you have two jobs: to become a saint and to drag other people to heaven with you. Becoming a saint is how you love God. Dragging others to heaven is how you love your neighbor. So the question then about vocation becomes this: do you want to be a saint?
You wait for somebody to say yes.
I can't answer for you, Michael. You have to decide if you want to be a saint or not. All I can do is try to drag you to heaven. But think about that. Do I want to be a saint or not? Because God won't force you to become one. I can't force you to become one. Not even the bishop can force you to become a saint. It's something you have to want for yourself and to work towards. But do you really want to be one or not? I mean, the obvious answer seems like yes, right? I mean, heaven seems nicer than not heaven. We don't have to say the name of the other place. We know what that means. It's the not nice one. But heaven seems nicer. But do I really want to be a saint? If the answer to that is yes, and I hope for Michael and for each of you the answer is, yeah, I do want to be a saint. And if the answer is yes, it's actually quite hard to do. There's quite a lot of work that goes into becoming a saint. Now, it's not hard probably in the ways that you're thinking it's going to be hard. You probably think that, boy, it is a chore to get up early on Sunday morning and take a shower and shave and put decent clothes on and come to church. And I understand, I've never been a parent, but I understand that if you have small children, Forcing them to get up and take a shower, but probably not a shave, get dressed and come to church is a lot of work. Right? There's some doing and some hate that goes into that, probably, right? Teresa's smiling at me like that is definitely the case sometimes. Yes. Zion, are you hard to get up?
Yes.
Yes, see? There's some work in that. That, though, is secretly not the hard part. I mean, it seems hard, but it's not terribly hard. Praying the daily office is one of the ways you work on becoming a saint. You've all heard me talk about the daily office before, I bet. But if you still don't know how to do it, come see me. I will teach you. I'm good at this. Praying the daily office means 15 or 20 minutes a day to do one of the two offices. Is it really hard to find 15 minutes in your day? You waste 15 minutes watching commercials every day on television. You totally have the time if you want it. Part of becoming a saint and dragging others to heaven means having a ministry. It means structuring your time such that you're doing the work of Jesus Christ out in the world. But you can have a ministry if you want to. It takes some pre-planning and some thought and some effort and some time, but you can have a ministry. That's not really the hard part. The hard part is this. It's that tiny voice who whispers to you like an anti-Stuart Smalley. Now, some of you probably are old enough to remember who Stuart Smalley is. He wears a beautiful powdered-colored kind of pastel-y sweater, and he'll do his daily affirmation. He looks in the mirror and says, because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, gosh darn it, people like me. But you've got that anti-Stuart Smalley that will sit there and whisper to you, you are not smart enough. You are not good enough. You are not holy enough. And there's no way, as bad as you are, that people like you. And God knows what you've done and doesn't like you either. And that voice whispers to you, trying to get you to believe it, that you're not good enough, that you're not holy enough, and that you are not smart enough. And then it whispers to you. And you start to think, there's no way I could ever become a saint. I'm not nearly as holy as St. Peter was, or James, or John, or Paul, or Jesus' mom, or his dad. I'm not as holy as Mother Teresa was. Friends, the truth is, you are not as holy as Peter, or Paul, or James, or John, or Mary, or Joseph, or even Mother Teresa. You probably just aren't. The other truth is that on your own, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not holy enough on your own. But Jesus doesn't call the perfect. He perfects the called. Jesus doesn't seek you and call you because you've got it all figured out and you're holy enough and good enough and smart enough already on your own. But He will add grace to you so that you can become good enough and smart enough and holy enough with His help. He perfects you as you answer His call. Not because you, as you sit right there, are perfect enough. You are not and will not on your own ever be holy enough or good enough or smart enough by yourself. And you don't even have to be. You have to be faithful. You have to show up and answer the call. You have to want to become a saint. You have to go to worship. You have to say your prayers. You have to have a ministry. You have to work to make your life holier. But Jesus is holy enough and good enough and smart enough for you and will make up the difference. With that said, do you want to become a saint? Amen.